Get started though. Oh, whoever started that recording, thank you. I totally forgot to hit record. Um, so yeah, before we get started, just a quick reminder. Well, actually, this was my prompt to remind everyone about interpretation, but since we're not doing that, I'll go ahead and just skip that altogether. Um, but one reminder is that we are recording today's session. So after today's session, we'll send an e-blast, which will include the recording, the slide deck, and any resources shared from speakers today. So keep an eye out for that in your inbox next week. And then, as usual, before we hear from today's speakers, we love to hear from you. And we're going to launch a quick questionnaire through Zoom with just 3 questions. So this basically helps us understand who we're reaching, where there might be opportunities for connection, and how we can continue to support partners across the region. So I'll let Meg launch that questionnaire really quick, and then we'll give everyone about a minute to respond before we jump into today's conversation. So here we're just gauging where you're from, what vital condition sector your organization represents, and if you're already a network member or not. Okay, I think it's slowed down, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. Sweet, so we'll just jump right into today's goals. So today we're going to explore learning not just as something that happens in a classroom, but as something that happens throughout our lives and within our communities. So we have 4 goals for today, and that is to build a shared understanding of the connection between belonging and lifelong learning, to explore how inclusive learning environments can strengthen our civic muscle, to hear from local partners who are creating opportunities and spaces for people to learn, grow, and lead, and to leave with ideas for how we can integrate belonging and learning into our own work. So here's a quick look at where we're headed today. So we'll have the opportunity to connect here in just a second, again, via chat, and then we'll kick off with some grounding in the vital conditions framework, and then a little deep dive into local data. And then we'll hear from 3 community partners who are approaching belonging and lifelong learning in very different ways. 2 of them are also vital condition grant recipients. So after their presentations, we will reconnect for some reflection and panel discussion with the speakers to explore some of the common threads across their work. And then we'll close out with a few network updates and ways for you all to stay connected. So before we jump in the chat, I want to share why this question is meaningful to me. So I'll ask you all to answer this question for yourselves in the chat here in just a second. Um, but education and learning have played a really important role in my own life as a first-generation college student. Education opened doors and created opportunities that weren't as readily available for some of my siblings or my parents, studying abroad, for example. But when I think about that journey, I don't just think about education itself, or the beautiful places that I traveled to. I think about the people that helped me feel like I belonged in those spaces. And when I transferred to Gonzaga from Wenatchee Valley College, I worked with an advisor who was incredibly patient with me. And when I say patient, I mean she was 8 months pregnant with twins. I remember that detailed very clearly. And here I was just a long lost young college student trying to make sense of what I got myself into or what I had signed up for. And if I'm being fully transparent here, I had no idea what a major even was. So her name was Jill Wilkinson, and she not only explained to me what a major was, she truly went above and beyond. She spent an entire afternoon with me, walking me around campus, showing me the different offices and people I needed to connect with to make my transition as smooth as possible. She could have simply, have told me check off a major out of this list and then select these classes and you're on your way. But instead, she slowed down. She listened to me, she answered my questions, and she helped me navigate a system that was simply, unfamiliar to me. And she made it okay for me not to know. And in doing that, it made me feel like I belonged. And that experience has truly stayed with me because it reminds me that sometimes belonging isn't about having all of the answers. It's sometimes just about having someone willing to meet you where you are and to help you find your own answers in your own way. Um, so think about your own experiences. What has helped you feel a sense of belonging in your learning environments across your life? Um, it could be a person or a relationship, mentor like me, a program or a place. So feel free to drop a word, a short phrase, anything that resonates with you relative to this question in the chat. Reciprocal mentoring has helped me feel like I belonged in learning environments. Certainly, field placements mentored me not just in my work, but in life and as a whole person. Teachers who get to know who I am. Certainly, there's definitely a few school, elementary, middle school, and high school teacher that I really remember and I'm still connected to. Professors in my life. Love this. Sixth grade teacher, learning disability. When a learning environment supports inquiry without a predetermined outcome, invites everyone's perspective, and where the expectation is to work together collaboratively to build shared learning. Exactly. It's what it's all about. Thank you, everyone. I love seeing the different ways belonging shows up in your responses, and I think it gives us a really nice starting point for today because belonging isn't just something we experience. It can certainly shape how we learn, how we grow, and how we connect with others. And so, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Monty, who's going to help us ground in this conversation in the vital conditions framework. So, Monty, take it
Yeah.
away.
Thanks, Veronica. And yeah, thanks for sharing the beautiful story of how kind of your journey and the professor or mentor really changed your life. So thank you. Um, I'm Monty with Community Initiatives Network. I've met most of you and had the privilege of spending time with many of you. And again, with this smaller group, I hope we can just turn this into, as we go through an intimate conversation with one another, and also just kind of to maybe for Meg and Veronica and Sarah, I'm hoping that we might be able to capture some of these pieces because I know there's a lot of folks that are interested in parts of this that may not have been able to be here. So I'm glad that we're recording this. Um, and I think, as always, we kind of anchor ourselves in this view of the vital conditions, and it's not just a colorful framework. What it symbolizes is, a holistic way of thinking about our communities, and that our whole community, all the wholeness in our communities is what really contributes to us as human beings developing our own wholeness. And so these vital conditions have become a language and a way of seeing that allow, I think, the network that you all are all part of in North Central Washington to start to have a practical and to a moral imagination around what it looks like for all people to thrive and for greater justice and well-being for everyone. And that's the premise. And you all have seen different parts of this. And if you go to the next slide, please, we're going to look at a slice that, Veronica has already kind of lifted up for us. And this idea that, Veronica, you were saying, throughout our lives in a lot of different settings. So I think this lifelong and they're continuous of this idea that, yeah, this is really vital to us throughout our life course from the very beginning of our lives. I'm doing some work in the Bay Area right now around reimagining early childhood through a village ethos and how we would invest in a community and a county that's had massive disinvestments and enormous racial inequities and social injustices. And the impact that the lack of positive and trauma in early childhood has throughout life is profound, and we're seeing it all over our country. And I also think the other beautiful thing as we think about learning and the ability to build our cognitive and social emotional well-being are, we have the ability to heal. And so we see that all through our lives, the role that learning plays in our ability to kind of be fully human. So this is a kind of looking at it through the life course and how important life learning in all ways is to our cognitive, social, emotional development. And I know we're going to hear a lot of that just looking through the slides and the folks that are going to present and having heard some of what this looks like, these different dimensions of learning. The next slide, please. The other, element, of course, at the center of this framework, what symbolizes that what's most important is our sense of belonging and our sense of collective power, the things that make us most human. Belonging is connection, and it's not just this abstract idea. It's something that happens very intentionally in groups. We may not always be conscious of it, but it doesn't happen by accident. So our ability to connect with the genuine in ourselves, and again, holding out some curiosity, about what that looks like with our three, community leaders are going to share a little bit around how does learning how us to connect with our genuine selves, and how does it help us to create environments where we're connecting with the genuine in others? How does it bridge across differences? And, how do we build belonging in ways that may heal some of the challenges that we carry with and between us? So that's kind of what, these dimensions of belonging, and kind of this idea that you all have been hearing about that the North Central Washington, Thriving Together North Central Washington has talked about is this idea of multi-solving. One of the, I think, important things about a framework like the vital conditions is a way that it shows that these pieces are interrelated. And because of that, just a reminder that, the kind of old adage that, a good solution solves multiple problems, or it helps us to reach multiple aspirations. So I think you're going to hear a lot of this today, and this is just kind of a quick view to kind of reinforce this point of universal school breakfast as one of the strategies that has been employed in different places that certainly improves learning. It can certainly improve behavior and discipline. It's certainly for our nutritional health, but it also kind of reduces stigma, this idea of what is universal. So we don't stigmatize families and children who may not have access to breakfast in the morning. And how does it affect our emotional and social cognition? And how does it support family budget? So this is just one way of thinking about a single investment, a single solution, um, can actually, accrue multiple benefits. And so I think we'll hear that theme. And so I'm going to encourage us just to hold on to the ways that we hear multi-solving in how we share our stories about the different programs and initiatives that are in place. And it's just a last picture of this, as Veronica said, this happens in a lot of different settings. I think one of the beautiful things that is really needed today is how do we learn across generations? and how that again accrues benefits to all generations. And I know you all in your region have done a lot of cool stuff around digital literacy and digital access, and that's a really tangible way of thinking about lifelong learning and how does that happen organically in nature. And nature is both healing and, of course, is a great conducive place for living. Um, by the way, one of the groups that did the vital conditions was in the beginning was the Children in Nature Network. So they did a lot of stuff around thriving natural environment, but they really showed this connection between our natural environment and healing and what it means for learning together. So anyway, a little bit of some light framing before we get into some conversation around what does this look like in your neck of the woods and in your community. So Veronica, I think I'm going to pass it back over to you, or actually
Thank,
Sarah.
Yeah.
thank you, Monty.
Meg, if you want to go to the next, I'm going to just talk really quickly about some of the data that we are looking at. And we're very lucky to have the IP3 platform and their vital conditions framework to really measure where we stand in our vital conditions. So looking at lifelong learning, um, we're a little bit better than the Washington State benchmark for our learning rate. And we're right there at exactly at the benchmark for on-time high school graduation. But we're a little bit lacking or behind, or however you want to think about it, in some of the other lifelong learning indicators, around preschool enrollment, school segregation, equity in school funding, um, child care centers, the number that we have around in our region, the number of adults with a high school diploma, our rates of adult literacy and numeracy. So there's definitely ways and things that we can improve in our region based on the data. But I always like to go and look at all the other vital conditions and think about how those same indicators that are being used to measure for another vital condition really help to play in to what it looks like for lifelong learning in our region. So next slide, we'll look at some of the other vital condition indicators that might come to play. And as you'll see, there are a lot of these uh, belonging and civic muscle indicators here in the pink. So, we have great libraries. There's lots of social associations that people can join. We're just barely above the benchmark for housing insecurity. We all know there is definitely a need still for more affordable housing and opportunities. Um, but some of the other things you'll see is, how are our youth being connected in school and working? Looking at extreme heat, how does that affect our learning? I know our schools could use some updating, especially around their HVAC. My daughter's preschool classroom burnt down because of an HVAC this year. So, you know, I know that our region could definitely see some improvements. We're going to hear a lot today about the importance of cultural arts and entertainment institutions. But, in terms of reliable transportation, what does not having vehicle access affect our learning opportunities? What does looking at labor force participation show us about what skills are needed to be taught in our schools, in our community colleges, and in just trade-based learning? How does being homeless for students, how does that affect learning? That's a huge impact. As many of us are noticing this morning, the PM 2.5, those air quality measures have a huge impact on learning. Kids can't go outside for recess. They can't play sports outside. All of those things have a huge impact on learning. Also, we're going to hear a lot about volunteering today and the importance of volunteers for these programs that really do help contribute to belonging and lifelong learning. Looking at food security, like Monty was pointing out, having free lunches, free breakfast can have a huge impact on students' ability to learn. And we're probably going to hear a little bit from Juan about how language and having limited English proficiency might have an impact on someone's ability to learn in schools, but also on the job and just in our communities. And so I think all of these indicators are really an important way to connect the data to the stories of our organizations and our residents and what they face in order to have what they need to thrive, especially in lifelong learning. And then I just want to give a quick example. Go ahead and next slide, Meg.
I have control of this. Well, not too much
Oh,
control of the
Veronica,
slides,
sorry. Yeah.
apparently, because it's going bonkers on me.
It's okay. And I just wanted to like point out, looking at one specific indicator, so looking at adults with high school diplomas, we see that we're about 8.5% less than Washington State. And if we break it down into the demographic, racial populations, only the white non-Hispanic population in North Central Washington has a higher percentage of adults with a high school diploma than the state. So while I think that says a lot to where our focus for education might need to be put. And there are lots of local examples of solutions. Of course, Wenatchee Valley College has a huge impact on adult learning in our region. 36% of their students are over the age of 25, which is how we determine adults in this statistic. And they have 3 specific programs that really focus on those students. So adult basic education, which is 11% of their students, doing a high school plus to allow adults who maybe left high school early, never were able to get a GED or a diploma, for them to be able to continue and finish those degrees. And then also they have a huge program for English language acquisition and other skills-based programs that help people move forward in their careers. I also want to point out Parque Padrinos, which has made a North Central Washington Tech Alliance digital commitment for this year to provide traditional sewing and embroidery classes that also teach at the same time online marketing, Facebook Marketplace, and digital payment tools for their Spanish-speaking students. And I just think that's such a wonderful example of how really embracing tradition and belonging and culture alongside some really great marketable skills is another really important way that partners in our region are doing things to really embrace this idea of lifelong learning and belonging in civic muscle. So we're going to hear from some really amazing speakers today who have their own data and statistics, and I'll be listening very closely and gathering that all up so that on, I think, Monday or Tuesday, when you see the follow-up email go out, you'll be able to really dive into the data and the resources that are provided during today's talk. So I'm really excited to hear more.
All right, thank you all. So today we'll hear from Ilana Bromley and possibly Deborah during the panel discussion, who are both with Stage Kids. We'll also get a chance to hear from Tracy Stiles with Girls on the Run, Columbia Valley. And last but certainly not least, Juan David Diaz with the NCW Equity Alliance. So their work looks very different on the surface, theater, running and mentorship, and equity and inclusion work. But I think you'll hear some common themes around relationships, confidence, participation, access, and creating environments where people feel like they belong, of course. So let's get started with our first speaker. So our first speaker is Lana Bromley with Stage Kids. Lana has been with Stage Kids since its inception in 2014, beginning as an instructor and working across classes, camps, productions, and choreography. She became production coordinator in 2023 and artistic director in 2025. She also directs theater productions at Eastmont High School and teaches theater at Wenatchee Valley College. Lana brings a really interesting perspective to today's conversation through both her work with young people in the arts and her broader experience in education and theater. Lana, thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you for overcoming the technical difficulties earlier. And I'll turn it over to you.
I'm a theater person, not a tech person, guys. Um, yeah, thank you for inviting us to be a part of this. And to clarify, I no longer teach at the college. When I took this role full time as artistic director, I found a replacement who is amazing. She taught theater at Shoreline Community College. So if you know any kids who are doing Running Start or at the college, definitely take a theater class. They're really great, really fun, and something different when the kids are stressed by calculus. Okay, awesome. So you guys are in charge of the slides, right? Okay. So if you want to click to the first one, this is just kind of just sort of an introduction about how what we do, right? We cannot solve the challenges the kids face, but we can equip and empower them with the skills that they learn through theater. So really, theater is our vehicle to fostering the values, and in another slide, you'll see our long list of things that kids, youth, and adults are growing in through theater arts. Yeah, so our mission, we worked really hard on creating this mission, what Stage Kids specifically, but really generally youth theater does. We empower youth through the transformative experience of theater, building character, confidence, and community. We offer, and this would be the same as a theater that I grew up going to in Austin, Texas. That's where I grew up. Classes, camps, productions, and through the time producing these things, we're nurturing the teamwork, responsibility, real lasting relationships. As a matter of fact, I'm meeting with one of my former Stage Kids who just graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design. We're meeting together today for about 45 minutes before she moves to back to Atlanta, or moves to Atlanta to pursue her film career. So lasting relationships for sure. Equipping young people with the life skills to thrive in life. Our values, the next slide. And I would say, again, my philosophy is everyone needs to be in a play at some point in their lives. So it's not too late, guys, not too late. It doesn't matter what you do. If you're an athlete, if you're, into band, if you're whatever, participate in one show in your life. It will change your life. It will absolutely change your life. And we see integrity, teamwork, responsibility, adaptability, and positive relationships. These are the values that stand out to us as really the strongest and most important things that result from working in the arts and working as a team, as a cast family. I'll go into a little more detail on those values when we come down here at the next couple slides. If you want to hop to the next slide. So, like I said earlier, theater is our vehicle to foster critical thinking, creativity, responsibility, community, respect, compassion, curiosity, confidence, enthusiasm, teamwork, humility, perseverance, flexibility, integrity, and STEM skills. You may not believe it, but musicians use a lot of math. Um, my kids play piano, they sing. When we're working with kids on a show, they're reading sheet music. Some of them are coming in at age 7. They've never touched a piano. They've never tried singing on their own, or at least in front of people. The kids are learning how to read sheet music. They're learning tempo. They're learning how to hear harmonies, learning the difference between melody and harmony and how we blend as voices. As some of our kids get a little older, we help train them in tech theater positions, running spotlight, running a light board, designing lights. As a matter of fact, Deborah's son, who is a senior at Kashmir, he has worked on some of our shows, learning how to design lighting and then running a light board. And in our valley, if you know how to design lights or run a light board or run a microphone mixer, you can be paid to do that, even if you're 17 years old. Leavenworth Summer Theater, I can think of countless teens who have been hired because they've learned how to mix microphones. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. And that's with theater arts kind of a dying breed in public schools, at least. Well, actually, mostly schools. Our community, our valley has fewer and fewer people who can do some of those jobs. And I know that because I hear from the theater managers at the various schools who say, we need more kids who can run tech. So let's see, I've got lots of notes here. I'm probably talking too quickly, like I do. My director's always told me, slow down, Lana, slow down. One of the things I love, probably one of the most powerful results for kids working in the arts is their feeling of belonging. And I've seen this as a kid when I was in high school, when I was studying theater in college, and of course, in the last 12 years, working with kids and teenagers in our valley, kids from all backgrounds. Now, I'll just be totally honest. Musical theater is a white sport. It is definitely across the country. It is a white sport. But I shouldn't say but. It's always something we're trying to engage in populations that don't know much about musical theater. Hey, what is this? Can this be for me? Having said that, theater attracts a huge diversity of people, whether we've got neurodivergent thinkers, we've got kids coming from troubled backgrounds, kids who don't feel like they have a place in school, they're teased in sports or whatever. We also get kids we get the high achieving kids. We have valedictorian. We've seen a lot of our stage kids become valedictorians. Such a mix. And the most powerful thing is when you see them all come together. Honestly, it doesn't matter what their backgrounds are, what their belief system is. They kind of lay everything at the door and they work together. Their common bond is to put on a show. And it's so beautiful. And sometimes I see kids that would maybe never, ever cross paths anywhere else in the world except in working on a show. And I think it teaches empathy. Actors are here we have in this list compassion. Actors are some of the most empathetic people. Our kids are learning to literally put themselves in someone else's shoes on stage, portray another character. And yeah, sometimes they're a lion in The Lion King, but that lion still has a story, emotions. They change as a character, and kids working on these things, they understand that and they learn that, and I truly believe they take it to their real lives and they apply these things in their real lives and the way they see the world. It opens up the world for them. Okay, if you want to pop to the next slide. I want to make sure I'm watching the time. Let me know if I'm going too long. So here's some real research and updated current research. The arts education boosts self-confidence, social emotional intelligence. Absolutely. I mean, I can't even share all the stories I've heard from parents coming to us with experiences their kids have had and their growth emotionally and in their confidence. I'll just share one about one young lady who, this is a very simple thing, but it wasn't until she learned how to express herself on stage was she able to express herself. This is going to sound odd, but in a doctor's office. Her mom came and said, my daughter, who had some health things, never could express herself to her doctor about what was going on. And it wasn't until she learned that she could stand up in front of people and do this cool thing was she able to really communicate to her doctor what was going on. And that seems like an unusual little anecdotal story, but very powerful for this family. Theater, the arts improve writing, reading, math, and SAT scores. You know, we're reading and analyzing scripts. We're reading other literature, plays. You know, I like to say I don't read books, I read plays, but that's true. I'm not a book reader. I read a lot of plays and musicals. And like I said, mentioned earlier, the kids are learning how to read music. It's pretty incredible to see the growth from day one. We just actually had auditions 2 days ago for our next show, and 10 weeks from now at cast party, the growth that we'll have seen in what the kids understand in the actual text, analyzing the text. I love this, that kids involved in the arts have a lower rate of high school dropout, higher rate of college graduation. um, I always tell our kids, you guys are the smartest kids around. You have to sing, you got to dance, you got to act, you got to remember where your props are, you got to remember what side of the stage you're entering, and oh, but your costume piece is on the other side. You've got to, when someone misses a line, you got to think fast and cover for them. I mean, it is a full engaging experience that I think these kids are having when they're working on a show or learning things in a class. I love that you mentioned the sewing class, the group that was bringing sewing back. That's one of our most popular classes is sewing. And it's really awesome to see these kids learn an art that's kind of not really around so much anymore, you know, with fast fashion, and it's expensive to buy fabric, and to see these kids who want to learn how to sew and create costume pieces and sew on a button, because that's always useful. Um, Increasing civic engagement. You know, most of our kids don't go off to be Broadway actors. We have a few. We have a few that are pursuing theater or film or music. Actually, we have a lot. But seeing our kids come up through our program and as a young adult support the arts, go and attend shows, music concerts, live dance, um, donating. I mean, we're seeing them that want to donate their time or sometimes their money to these organizations, and always have an appreciation for the arts and advocating for the arts in their community. I think about the recent levy that was passed for Wenatchee and some of the programs that were part of that levy. And I know parents that there was no question about how they felt about supporting the levy that would continue to support some of these in enriching opportunities at school, at least in Wenatchee. What else? Let's see. Okay, the next slide, if you don't mind. These are some interesting stats. For every dollar spent on arts, 9 is saved in reducing welfare and crime costs. Participation in after-school arts programs lowers crime, and you can see the link to the reference down there, the Americans for the Arts and Arts and Youth Education. Art strengthens the economy. So this is fascinating. Maybe you didn't know that making up a larger portion of the GDP than transportation, agriculture, and utilities. Just simply when there's a show in Wenatchee, doesn't matter if it's Stage Kids, Music Theater of Wenatchee, whatever, Wenatchee High School, Eastmont High School, when there's a show, people are spending money. They're buying a ticket. They're getting dressed up and going out to eat. They're celebrating with ice cream afterwards. And that seems like a little thing, but that is part of our economy. And it's what helps make our community feel vibrant too. You know, you go down to the Pack on a Friday night and to see people kind of buzzing around at the restaurants and walking on the street and before and after the shows. It's pretty great for our community. This one's a big one: art strengthen mental health and well-being. Uh, I know Deborah was the one who taught me this statistic. Just 45 minutes of making art can reduce cortisol by 25%. That's pretty incredible, especially in this day and age when our youth um, are stressed out beyond belief and are inundated with social media and comparisons and why don't I have that? Why am I not that good? Why am I not that beautiful? Um, Participating in the arts helps. I'll share an example. My sister-in-law actually gave me a study last year, or maybe it's a couple years ago in 2024, from Ohio State. And it was from their psychology department, and it was listing things you need to do on a daily basis to find fulfillment and peace and happiness kind of on a daily basis. And at this time that my sister-in-law shared this with me, my husband had actually just passed away. My husband had ALS and he passed away in 2024. And at that time, we were working on The Little Mermaid. And I still had to get to rehearsals. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I could have backed out, but my kids were in the show. I wanted to be there for them. And I was talking with my sister-in-law, and she sent me this list of these things from Ohio State. Things like laughing every day, crying or feeling some stronger emotion daily, physical touch, physical bringing up your heart rate. Those were 4 of the things on the list. And it hit me so hard because I was doing this every day. Or at every rehearsal. I was doing this at every rehearsal with these kids. We were laughing. Sometimes we're crying, especially when I work with the teenagers at Eastmont, or they're crying about things going on in their lives, or that the story is moving them to tears. And we're being physical. We're getting our heart rate up, and we're touching. We're having physical touch, whether it's in choreography or blocking. And it was so impactful to me. And I thought, this is what's helping me get through my own trauma with having lost my husband. Sorry, I don't mean to feel emotional. It's just, it's the data is there, and I have experienced it from my childhood to my adulthood. I see the kids who come in and are struggling with real stuff. And theater is their safe space. And I know we hear that buzzword all the time, safe space, but it really is. They know it doesn't matter what brand of leggings they wear. It doesn't matter, um, what, I mean, I can think of lots of things. It just doesn't matter what's going on in their lives. They come together and they form a bond with each other, and I think that lifts them up. I don't think that, I know that because I talk to these families on a regular basis. The last one, the arts spark creativity and innovation. I love this. You guys, if you have a chance, go onto Instagram. Even though I kind of hate Instagram and I love it at the same time. There is an awesome video by Josh Groban. It's actually kind of a meme now. It's been around for a couple of years, and he's speaking to a conference, and he's saying, if you need someone who can solve problems, hire a theater kid. If you need someone who's flexible and adaptable, hire a theater kid. If you need someone who can collaborate with people they hardly know, hire a theater kid. If you need someone who can act like they know what they're doing even when they don't, hire a theater kid. And I love that. It's kind of a funny meme, but it's so true. It's when you work in the arts, when you learn in the arts, when you're educated in the arts, your creativity is fostered, it's encouraged, and I think that just leads to innovation. We have another stage kid who just graduated from Boise State, and she just earned a very prestigious internship at a theater in Florida, and she has a degree in business and theater. And well, her minor's in theater. And so she's going to be working on a more business side in this internship, but also being involved in some of the creative decisions. So pretty cool. Pretty cool for her. Okay, I think I'm sorry, I'm probably talking too long. Our last slide second to last, I guess. Yes, this one. It's just a story. Last night, I'll just read it quickly. Last night, Jane was in her school's talent show. In the past, she would freeze at these shows and run off stage. This year, her friend asked her to do a duet. They hit it out of the park to a standing ovation. What really touched me was afterwards, there was a group of 6 stage kids, but you could say any kid that's been involved in the arts with them, all hugging them at the same time and celebrating their success. The look of joy and happiness on Jane's face was priceless. The love, support, and friendship that Stage Kids creates. Again, I would say the love and support and friendship that the arts create goes well beyond the run of a play. It creates friendships that will last for life. Thanks for helping Jane find her people. That means the world to me as a father. Sweet, sweet anecdotal story, but there's many more. Okay, finally, our tagline, building characters one at a time. That's the next slide. That's just what theater does. We're building we're building an amazing human being. Doesn't matter how well they sing or how well they dance. We want to teach them to sing and dance and act well, but we're really creating, helping to create awesome people that contribute to the world. Many who come back to Wenatchee. We have some that have gone through our programs or high school theater, and now they're back in Wenatchee teaching, and some of them are working with us. Um, Anyway, that I'd say I think our last slide is just our staff, if you were wondering. This is our staff, this is not does not even include all the people that actually work on the shows. Our music directors, our choreographers, our stage managers. But we have a pretty incredible staff who believes in the mission and believes in fostering the arts in our community and how that can help our youth and really our adults, our parents who find a community within the arts, working on a show with their kids, find belonging, feel purpose. We need every kid. We tell the kids, I don't care what size your role is, you are needed all the time. You are putting on this show, and don't forget that. What should I say in closing? Oh, what we've learned from the grant last minute. So we received an awesome grant to bring kids from Grant County schools to see one of our shows free of cost and to provide a theater camp this summer out in Quincy. And I learned a lot. I learned that we still need to work at removing barriers to entry within our programs, and I think that's the case in most arts programs, whether you're taking violin lessons or dance classes. Um, I've learned that kids are so engaged while watching other kids. You see the kids in the theater at the PAC, 500 students there watching a performance of Matilda, kids who are 8 to 14, and it just engages them in ways that is really undeniable in a way that would not engage them watching a movie or watching adults perform even. What else do I have here? Oh, yeah, and just I think also learned that, even in Washington State, I grew up in Texas, but even in Washington State, the arts are just declining in schools, and any opportunity we have to provide some engagement is a win. And I feel like we have had that with bringing these Grant County kids into Wenatchee to see a show, many of them who had never been in a theater before. Pretty amazing. So thank you for that opportunity for us. And scene.
Awesome way to close it out. Thank you, Lana. I really appreciate the way you showed us that theater can be um, about so much more than performance itself. The arts create opportunities for young people to practice, confidence and creativity, teamwork, responsibility, all of those things that you mentioned, of course, skills that extend beyond the stage. So that brings us to our next example, which approaches belonging and learning through a very different medium, and that is movement. Our next speaker is Tracy Stiles with Girls on the Run, Columbia Valley. Tracy is a community health and program leader with Columbia Valley Community Health, where she leads initiatives focused on access to care and community well-being. She also manages the operations of Girls on the Run Columbia Valley, along with community outreach and engagement, health education, mobile clinics, community events, and other community-based programs. Tracy brings experience across nonprofit organizations, the private sector, and consulting, with a strong focus on collaboration and community-centered program development. She brings an important perspective to today's conversation about movement, mentorship, learning, and relationships, and how they can create opportunities for young people to thrive. So, Tracy, thank you for joining us today and for sharing the work you're doing with young people in our region. And I'll turn it over to you.
Absolutely. I am very excited to be here. Thank you. I love that, Stage Kids did their presentation today as well, because it just reminds me of so many of the great experiences that I had with theater. And I absolutely credit it with helping me find my voice. And, I haven't stopped talking since then. So be careful what you wish for. But it was such an amazing experience. And, very similar to how Lana talked about that theater is not really the end goal. It's the medium through which you're able to build these different skills. We really view physical activity as the same thing. Yes, our program is primarily based in running. That's not what our end goal is. We are not here to make a bunch of marathoners. We are here to help girls build those social emotional skills and that self-confidence that will be able to carry them into their future and help them achieve their highest potential. So I'd love to tell you about some of the different things through this season. If you can go to the next slide. We really approach this work thinking, what if the most important thing that we can teach a child is not skills, but a belief that they belong and they matter and that they're the author of their own story? So this really underlies all of our curriculums. This most recent year, we delivered our Hello Superstar curriculum, which really focuses on finding the things about each individual that makes them amazing and interesting and beautiful, and all of these things that just kind of weave into the tapestry of a culture and a community and the different things that make us humans. So we'll talk a lot more about that as we go through. Can I get the next slide? So a huge part of this, and I think that this is something that we all have seen in different settings, is that people learn best when they feel that they belong. So we see this path here, and I had the opportunity to coach in this most recent season, and so I saw this firsthand for a bunch of adorable little like third and fifth graders, and it was so cool to see all of this theory come into practice. And so the path really is a child feels safe in a setting that puts them in a position where they are willing to try something that maybe feels really hard. A lot of third graders, that's an 8-year-old, right? At the end of our season, we run a 5K. How many 8-year-olds do you know who can run a 5K? So that feels very intimidating and like this really big thing. And through the course of the year, through the course of the season, where we really focus on building a safe environment where they are willing to try and where they practice and see the benefits of their practice, which builds confidence. We know that there's a really strong tie between confidence and competence. When you are competent in one area, it builds your confidence throughout all areas of your life. Using this, we're then able to help build the belief that regardless of your age, girls are able to contribute meaningfully around them. And then when they belong, they can help others belong too. Um, so along with this is really something that ties into a number of our different areas. We, I think, most closely fit, honestly, a couple different categories of the vital conditions, but a lot of our work really culminates in that belonging and civic muscle piece. So I think one thing that I'm seeing a lot right now, and other folks who work with youth, certainly let me know what you think, but I feel like there is a feeling in a culture of disempowerment where youth think that they can't really make a big difference in the world around them. They're just one small drop in a bucket, and what they do doesn't really matter. And so we very intentionally have worked to challenge that, and we are working to challenge it with, each of our progressing cohorts as we go through the seasons. One way that we were able to do that actually is in partnership with Stage Kids, which is really cool that we're able to talk about this. But As you all are very aware, we have had a lot of wildfires around. And so one initiative that Girls on the Run has done after our most recent season is really just to work with a number of different organizations, as well as the participants, to gather thank you notes and pieces of art and other things like that to share with firefighters in our area, who are really working in these conditions and helping to keep our area safe. And so we've received a great, breadth of submissions, and I have to say the most glitterful, colorful, and creative ones did come from stage kids. And so I am so grateful for that contribution. And they are just the cutest. So that's really just one example. At the end of every season, we also have a service project. And so this is something that is initiated by the participants, it is designed by them, and it's executed by them. The grown-ups are there to make sure nobody gets hurt and answer any questions, but this is something that they problem solve for themselves. They identify a need and they figure out how they're going to help fill it. Let's go to the next slide. So we focus a couple of different areas here. As I mentioned before, this is really a development program where we do some running. We focus on mentorship, moving, and social emotional strengths. Mentorship is also really, really important in these areas. And one of the beauties of the age span for this program is that we have older kids and younger kids. And so within our youth cohort in the season, we have older kids who are able to help support younger kids and build that confidence and be that example and really feel that they, have something to offer and that they have something that they can teach other people. In addition to that, we have coaches. Many of our coaches have been volunteers for a really long time. Several of them have connections in other areas through the community. And then we also have a junior coach program as well. So that is for 16 to 18-year-olds. Most of our junior coach participants are folks who did Girls on the Run as a kid. And so it's really, really cool to be able to see them come back and just see the well-rounded individuals and youth that they have become and the ways that they're able to build the next generation behind them. Next slide. So these are some of the really key areas that we focus on building. Some of our curriculums focus more on a couple of areas, and then others focus on other areas. But overall, we're looking to build safety, connection, confidence, resiliency, agency, and leadership. And that translates into really specific outcomes in the day-to-day life of a child, but also a youth and adult as they grow up. So that feeling of safety and that grounding leads to I can be myself. Connection leads to people here know me. I'm part of this. I belong here. Confidence gives you the strength to try. Resilience means that you learn to keep going. Life is tough and it's going to just get tougher as kids grow up. So building that resilience early on really helps to give them the tools to succeed in those types of settings. Agency teaches kids that their choices matter, and leadership says that they can make a difference. So these are really, really important pieces of our program and pieces that weave through our overall curriculum and the work that we do. Can I get the next slide? Um, so we have a number of different areas here and ways that we contribute and build. I'm not going to go too deep into these just for the sake of time. I want to make sure that we get a little bit more time to answer questions at the end because I imagine that that's probably a more fun piece of this. So I'm certainly happy to give additional detail to anyone who's curious about our more nitty-gritty theoretical underpinnings of our different areas. But let's go ahead and skip to the next slide here. So one additional piece of this is that we work really hard to be able to remove barriers. This especially is an area where Thriving Together NCW has helped us build our capacity in this area. So as with all of our other youth serving programs in the area, we are seeing youth who are being faced by the same challenges that the rest of our community and population are seeing. So families have lower budgets for extracurricular activities. They have less time available. Volunteers more broadly have less time available. And these are all pieces that are really impacting our participants in this program. a huge percentage of our participants receive scholarships. That can be a partial scholarship or a full scholarship. We give a lot of shoes. This is something that we started actually with Rock Island Elementary when we started identifying that there was a big need and we had an equity gap. Rock Island Elementary is a very different school than Sunny Slope Elementary. And so, when we're serving the entire continuum of our community, we have identified these areas where we really need to build equity and build pathways through which we're able to ensure everyone is able to access. Um, so with part of, the funding through this grant as well as other donations and other pieces, we've been able to really strengthen in those areas. Of course, we've supported our scholarships. We've been able to give out equipment for folks who need it. I think some of the most important pieces has also been to allow us to strengthen and build our operational capacity. So what that looks like is really focusing on our coach delivery, the quality of the experience for people who are participating, as well as ensuring that we have a robust training curriculum for coaches and volunteers who are working with kids. One area that has really specifically improved is around our behavioral outcomes. So when you have a couple hundred kids all getting together several times a week over the course of a season, you're probably going to have some issues come up, right? So, occasionally we in the past have had different kind of just social, emotional, and interpersonal pieces come up where we've had to do some coaching and do some leading and other things like that. I am really pleased to report that this year we were able to make some changes with our training. We brought in one of the psychologists who specializes in children's care here at CVCH, and she actually attended our trainings and gave a lot of information to new coaches. She talked a lot about Erickson and the theory behind it and child development and all of these great pieces that I think really helped to build that understanding for our coaches. We also were able to build some tools for new coaches who were younger or had never, managed a classroom or some of those other pieces where they had a lot of quick reference materials and support. So this year, we didn't have to talk to any principals. We only had two kind of medium things that I was able to coach them through, and then we were okay. So I think that that's some great evidence that we were able to see that being an effective outcome there. Another part of that is also language. So language is absolutely a piece that is affected as well. This year, we were able to have a bilingual team, which is the first time, to my knowledge at least, that we have ever done that. So that is also really exciting. We were able to do this through a partnership with Cafe, the community center. Oh gosh, I'm going to get their acronym wrong. It's very long. Center for the Advancements of Family Education. But they are fantastic. They are such a great organization, and we as CBCH partner with them for a million things all the time. But for Girls on the Run, this was really, really special. So we were able to bring in their youth programs leader, and he was a coach and brought in some youth coaches as well who are really able to build their own leadership capacity and then also act as mentors for those younger kids. So super, super cool. And we definitely have a lot of other pieces that we're really proud of as well. But it's been a year of growth and definitely a year of increasing access and belonging in this area. Let's go to the next slide. I mostly just talked about this, so let's go to the next one after that as well. Thank you. So the thing that I'd like to leave everyone with is a challenge. Youth serving organizations are definitely not the only areas that can help build learning and belonging and opportunities for that lifelong learning skill within the community. So, for all of our organizations that we are representing, there are almost certainly areas where we can increase belonging, where the type of work that you do can be built and delivered in a way that increases belonging and really invites folks in. There are also almost certainly ways that your work directly translates to learning and skill development. Participation. Are there different areas where We could collaborate with different organizations, different ways that we can encourage people to participate and build that muscle. Are there any barriers that prevent us from fully participating? And what type of opportunities for people um, what type of opportunities do you have for an individual to move from a participant to a contributor to a leader? This is work that we're all doing. I think it's a lens change that is so empowering. And I think that this has been an incredibly impactful year for me as I've spent the year with this program and worked to build these areas. And I know so many organizations in our area are doing this great work as well. Um, I think there's one more slide. Oh, questions. There we go. So thank you all. I will certainly answer any questions, but I know we'll have a panel in a minute as well. So I appreciate all of your time, and I'll try to get a couple of the pictures of our artwork that I can send over to the Thriving Together team, and maybe we can include that there. So I'll find those. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. So our final speaker is Juan David Diaz, the Executive Director of the North Central Washington Equity Alliance. Juan has served as the ED of the Equity Alliance since November 2024 and is originally from Colombia. Juan brings experience in business administration, international sales, financial management, and relationship building in rural and indigenous communities. So he's now based here in the Wenatchee Valley, and he leads outreach and advocacy efforts focused on advancing equity and inclusion throughout the region. He brings an important perspective to today's conversation because when we talk about belonging and lifelong learning, we also have to ask who has access to these opportunities, who feels included, and what conditions need to be in place so people can fully participate and belong. So Juan, thank you for being here and for sharing your perspectives today. I'll turn it over to you.
Right, thank you. Thank you for having me. Hi, everybody. I won't introduce myself because Veronica just did it. So I work for Equity Alliance, and to build belonging, just to go straight to the point, that what is happening with these very hated letters currently, diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, apparently something like we can't mention anywhere. Um, and it's not only about DEI, just to be clear about the whole concepts and definition, is DEI A, B. So let's go to the next slide. The next slide. Excuse me. We need to talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, which has been, they have been like the ugly stepsisters of the Cinderella. And we don't understand why, because we have also to talk about accessibility. And with these really important topics, we are going to get everybody to feel like they belong. So that's what we have to be aware of. Of course, there are many, many different definitions about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Of course, as Equity Alliance, we are very consistent in being clear about what equity means. Uh, so in the next slide, we can see like maybe you've seen those images before. So this is a key difference we have to be aware of. Like equality is one thing and it's way different than equity. So equality is that everyone gets the same regardless if it's needed or right for them. That's why we need to talk about accessibility and how important that is for our communities, because it's equity. Uh, in terms of equity, it's like everyone gets what they need, understanding the barriers, circumstances, and conditions. So the images are very clear. Just to put one of the thousands of examples we have in our community. So if we continue to the next slide, I'm going to show you the structure and what is included in the DEI AB concepts. Because when you talk about DEI, it's kind of satanized currently or historically, because it's not only that it's happening now. I mean, now it's getting worse and worse and worse. But uh, the main ones, or the ones who everybody likes to talk about, is only SOGI, which is sexual orientation and gender identity, because there's a huge controversy around that topic. And the other one is race and ethnicity. So currently in our country here, I mean, here in the United States, we've been dealing with these huge controversies about these main topics. Race, because of the number of people of color living up here. Many times we listen or we hear people talking about the white privilege and, Hispanic people being marginalized and not accessing to resources. Or so we listen to many, many different things, but we are not clear about those concepts and definitions and what is included in DEI. When somebody talks about diversity, we only make the assumption about sexual orientation and gender identity. We need to be diverse. So if we are diverse, it means like we need to include anybody from the LGBTQ plus community. Or we need to be diverse. So we allow these to become to a check boxing list. Okay, so we need to bring to the table somebody, and that person needs to be a person of color. We need to invite another person from the LGBTQ plus community. So what are we doing with the information we are collecting from these folks? That's the most important thing. So look at the many things we have to take care about when we are talking about diversity and inclusion, and of course, equity as well. Age and generational differences. So the main question there is like, are we taking care of our elders, for example? Are we building environments and places thinking about them as well? People with disabilities, our organization have been very focused on that topic because disabilities is not only physically, we have many, many different kinds of disabilities. And we do have many folks in our communities dealing with that as well. So are we thinking about them as well? Socioeconomic status, religion, belief system, spiritual identity, nationality, immigration status. Oh my God, let's talk about that. Like that is one, or maybe the worst one currently. You know what is happening with our immigrants here. And if you connected that one to race and ethnicity, you can see that intersectionality because that's another conflict. So, because of the race profile, some people have been assumed as immigrants, and at the end, they got born here, they are Americans. But of course, because of the way they look, they have Hispanic roots. So that's another thing that we are living currently. Language, of course, we have support of Spanish translations. For example, in this section, we are having the help from Daniela. So it shows like we need to think about these folks as well who just don't know how to speak any English, or maybe people like me, like their English is not their first language, and maybe my speaking is not the best, but are we understanding the message correctly? Uh, and this is not because we need to check that box. If you take a look at the data we collect every time, because we have many surveys here. I mean, many, many institutions are doing surveys frequently. So the thing is not the survey. The thing is like, what are you doing with that information you're collecting? Sarah, you know that better than anybody here. So what are we doing with that data? Because if you take the information of our four counties, North Central Washington, that 36.6% of the population are Hispanic. So this is not because we need to check that box. It's because it's a huge proportion of our population here. So we need to take care of that as well. There's some more, as you can see in that slide: cultural background, region, geography, identity, educational backgrounds as well. And in the first two presentations, we saw some information related to that. Political beliefs, philosophies, neurodiversity, mental health. There's some intersectionality there, I mean, in all of them, but I don't know if you remember what happened a year and so ago with these three kids. I know this is a very, very sensitive topic, but this guy who was a veteran, and I don't know if you remember, of course you do, what happened last year. And it was so bad, devastating, and horrible. So when we were having this conversation with some experts as well, we found like, this guy was a veteran with no opportunities, with no access to many things, to many resources. And of course, all of that affected his mental health. So there's another question out there. Are we taking care of our veterans? Is the system taking care of our ex-military service or members? Marital status. We've seen how many people have tried or they already did like kill themselves because of the way they have been discriminated, because of the way they look, because I'm obese, or maybe because I'm too short. So we are showing this information to everybody because we consider like the most important thing, or maybe the main step or the most important step we have to take is first understanding the real concepts and definitions, to stop going out there to misconfuse our community, or I mean, misconfuse is not the right word, to misinforming our community. Um, so we all have this responsibility to be aware of what is included in the DI concepts. So I'm going to get to the next one, please. Another thing we have to be clear about is the differences between marginalized folks and underserved folks. Marginalized is related to what have been happening historically in demographic things. We are talking about accessing to, I mean, participation, positions of power, those kind of things. Groups like the ones I already mentioned, Black American folks, indigenous, LGBTQ plus communities, Hispanic, those are marginalized folks. And underserved folks is more related to access to basic rights or services like health, education, transportation, and housing. So it brings another discussion. So is only Hispanic folks the one having problems with access to housing? Of course not. Is there any white privilege if we are talking about some transgender kid who got kicked off his house because the way they look or the way they think? There's no privilege there. So I don't know if there's some questions so far or comments. And another thing, because of the short time we have for today, I decided to bring another information because there's a huge confusion here in this region. Let me just tell you, and I'm wearing two hats, Executive Director of North Central Washington Equity Alliance, but also the Colombian guy who just came up here 4 years ago for a living. Because there's a huge confusion about being Hispanic and Latino and what is included in both groups. So let's go to the next slide. This is a very simple way to understand it. Hispanic is related to the language you speak. So if you are Latino American, it doesn't necessarily mean like you are Hispanic. So some people don't understand, like people from Spain, for example, they are Hispanic as well. They speak Spanish. And Latino is a part of America, but they don't necessarily need to speak Spanish. Like Brazil, for example, they speak Portuguese. So they are Latinos, not Hispanic. Same with many islands on the Caribbean. Actually, there's another country in Central America, Belize, they don't speak Spanish. There's another country in Africa, and it was kind of popular because of the World Cup recently, is Equatorial Guinea. They speak Spanish, so they are Hispanic as well. And my question has been, and maybe some people I've been, having some relations with, can tell you how consistent or I don't know how to say that, Daniela or Veronica, like I've been, very, very, yeah, incisive in asking everybody, like, do you think Hispanic is only Mexicans? Because we have that confusion as well. Many, many people here just connecting the concept of being Hispanic to Mexican folks. And it makes sense because more than 80% of our Hispanic population are coming from Mexico or they have Mexican roots. But have you seen how many people from Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Central America, specifically from Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, we have live in our region? So the question here is like, are we including those folks in our projects, in our events, in our activities, or allowing them to access to our resources available? That's a question we need to answer ourselves as well. So I know this is very complicated. This is a very complex topic, but I wanted to share with you like the main or the most important information just for you to be clear about. Maybe, of course, many of you uh, uh, were already clear about those concepts and definitions, but maybe some others just not.
Mm, yeah.
Any questions so far? I mean, I think that's it. Again, I didn't want to take longer than the time you told me that was
Mm,
available for us to speak.
Thank
So
you,
I
Juan.
appreciate your questions and comments.
yeah.
Thank you, Juan. I know we've reached time, so we won't be able to have the panel discussion portion, but I'll quickly just turn it over to Monty really quick for a quick reflection and weaving, and then I will offer just a few quick network updates for those of you that are able to stay behind a couple of minutes.
Mhm.
Monty, go ahead.
Yeah. This was beautiful. I do wish we had more time. So here's my 70-second kind of what jumped out at me at this beautiful kind of interwoven conversation, thinking of stage kids, transformation of all youth. This idea of this cornucopia of benefits that you all provide for youth and your intentionality around that. And that just links so nicely to what Tracy shared that, it's the medium is not the end. Like Stage Kid, running is disguised, running, a learning environment disguised as running. It's brilliant. The intentionality in which you all recognize belonging and building agency in your work and how you do it. And I think that just kind of falls right into one, what you reminded us. We are right now at a moment of great uncertainty. DEI is being attacked and lifted up as a way of really driving a culture war that is disconnecting us, that is really trying to, in many ways, you know, create social disconnection and disunity. And so what the curiosity that comes up for me, you all mentioned curiosity a couple times, is what's our moral clarity? That and what is our moral courage as we think about how we include folks in our communities, regardless of what your political beliefs are. This is a basic question of human dignity, and I think it's what the vital conditions and thriving together is all about. All people, all places belong and deserve the opportunities to thrive together. So the last question that Tracy asks is one I hope we continue to pull into our work, which is where are learning opportunities and opportunities for belonging hiding in our work, in our neighborhoods, in our interactions. Thank you all. This is really beautiful presentations. Veronica.
Thank you, Monty. All right, so just quickly, I'll throw these in the chat. Some links for you all. Our registration is open for our annual summit, which is taking place October 21st. It'll be in Moses Lake. And we still have our mid-year partner survey open. This is basically what we use to kind of inform next year's capacity building opportunities and offerings for the network. So make sure to enter your needs there. And then you can register for the next learning session, which won't be until December since we're skipping October for the summit. So I added those in the chat for you all. And then just another visual at what I just ended up sharing. Think we'll go ahead and skip the feedback piece. We'll actually include it in a follow-up email perhaps, but that is all. Thank you all for joining. Apologize for keeping you guys behind a few minutes. Thank you to all of our speakers, and until next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.